he was against SB 423, and what it was in his life that brought him to get behind us and get behind alternative medications. So with that, you might have noticed there's no music. I don't have, there's been a lot of changes and problems with the technical stuff down here, so all of my pre-done stuff is gone. So you got us for an hour, and we're going to try to fill this time the best we can to give you a lot of information. I'll see if I can crack a joke somewhere in so you can laugh once or twice, and maybe we'll learn something before we're done. So, Senator, again, thank you for coming down. I believe you said just call you Dave.
Just call me Dave, that's right.
Thanks for coming. Tell us what's going on with you, because I know there's been a lot of changes, so we want to catch us up and tell us.
I have decided after 6 months of trying to be a candidate to run for governor to discontinue my operation and to focus on representing my clients, my district, my constituents, and to do a good job of that. That takes a lot of time if you do it right. I spent a lot of time during the session talking to people who live in my district who were users, patients of medical marijuana. And it's surprising. I happen to be a cancer survivor, and I used all non-traditional alternative medicines. Didn't include medical marijuana, but I don't know how it all worked, but I'm alive when I'm not supposed to be. And so for those people that find relief through the use of medical marijuana, I say kudos. We need to have a system that identifies that some people need to have access to medical marijuana to live a full life, to work, to enjoy their grandchildren, to enjoy their family, to enjoy their spouse, to be able to hold a job. And that includes a lot of veterans, frankly, that come back and have post-traumatic stress disorder. We have too many veterans that come back after making a significant sacrifice in their life, putting themselves in danger. They simply can't function. And we need to do something about that. And medical marijuana clearly is a way to do that. Now, my colleagues in the legislature didn't agree, and I was on the short side of a number of votes. The court now has, I think, remedied some of the biggest problems with that law.
At least temporarily until...
Yeah. And I'm not exactly sure how that's all going to play out. My feeling is the legislature itself needs to make laws that are responsive and responsible, and that particular legislation that passed was needed.
Right. I was at the, matter of fact, I never did get the film edited and put up, but I was at the MTCIA rally down at Terrace Park when you were talking, and very intrigued by the fact, you had said that 4 times they brought the bill back, and 4 times you asked, is this what the people want? And every time they said, oh yes, and it was different every time. And still they said, yep, this is what they want.
That's right. It came back in 4 different versions, and I specifically asked each time, is this what the voters said? Because the main argument for essentially repealing the law was the voters didn't know what they were voting for, or they didn't want what we had. So I guess we were throwing darts in the dark, trying to hit the target, and each time, oh, we got that one, no, it's this one, no, it's that one, now it's this one. And clearly, a law that was enacted by 72% of the people voting in the 2004 election, more votes for this than George Bush received running for re-election to be U.S. president. Same election where people enacted a ban on same-sex marriage. I think people took the time and looked at this and made a good decision in each one of those cases. I'm not so sure about President Bush, but he got elected. The point is, we can't simply throw out what the voters tell us because we don't happen to like it. They were smart enough to vote for me. They were smart enough to vote for that initiative.
And that's quite a statement right there, just that, they were smart enough to vote for me, because there's a lot of politicians who were up there saying, well, my candidates were smart enough to vote for me, also said they were too stupid to know what they were doing when they checked this box.
I think most people know full well that the pharmaceutical industry would love to have everybody addicted to these harsh narcotics that don't work. People that are on narcotics live a fraction of the life that they can live with medical marijuana. They go cold turkey, they don't have a life at all in many cases. And I think all of us want to make sure that all of our neighbors that want to function, want to have a good family relationship with their spouse, their kids, their grandchildren, they want that. And we all want that.
I think that, you know, I'm blanking out a little bit, but you were just saying the voters, you know, they knew what they were voting for. This was something they wanted. People, they want to stop suffering. You know what I mean? I don't think there's anybody on the planet, probably, or at least not in this country, that doesn't know someone who used or has used or is using marijuana medically or recreationally. You know, and the media changed between the 50s when Reefer Madness first started being pushed, and the lies they're propagating now is that people can rebut it. You know what I mean? People can get right on Facebook or MySpace or Twitter or whatever and say, oh, BS. You know, like there was a thing on Normal today, and this I haven't got to yet. My girl was on the internet today, reading emails and checking stuff on Normal, and regardless of the fact that President Obama said that federal funds shouldn't be used to prosecute people following the state laws using, growing, and selling marijuana, and despite the fact that Eric Holder said that the FBI wouldn't be wasting our tax dollars chasing after people following state laws. Now there is a deal on Normal saying the feds came out and said that regardless of your state laws, anybody growing or selling marijuana will be come after with the full weight and aggression of the federal government. Against the will of the people and against the will of their superiors. You know what I mean? And I think that all this comes down to what everything in America comes down to, and it's the dollar. It ain't about legality. You know, when marijuana was made criminal, racism was used to push it. Those black men will get high on marijuana and rape your white wives. And Hearst, owning the newspapers, pushed this because marijuana or hemp was becoming a paper substitute, and Hearst was a newspaper man who owned vast tracts of forest and didn't want marijuana being used for paper. He was selling newspaper out of trees. And so they started this whole campaign to make it illegal. And it was about money then, it's about money now. You know, as we were talking earlier, big pharmacy companies want people on narcotics because that's what they produce. You know, and I don't think they're good, but I think they're necessary. I think there's a whole lot of people whose lives are saved because they could use those narcotics to get them through surgery and get them through recovery. But I've also known so many people, including Cherie, who was on our second show and as part of the program, who were given narcotics for pain, went a distance with them, grew a tolerance. Their doctors find out that they're now addicted to them and want to cut them off cold, and they're sent out into the streets. And I've never gone through an opiate withdrawal, but I've heard that you won't die from it, you just wish you would hurry up and die. You know, and diarrhea and vomiting and shakes and cramps, and basically like the worst flu or food poisoning you've ever had. And so they have the choice then of suffering through this, which would only take about 3 days, you know, 3 horrible days of their lives, and the worst of the suffering would be done. Or they can go out and find someone to sell them a pill. And I don't know about the rest of you, but regardless
use methadone too.
Of
give a methadone for opiate addiction.
Right, but it's the same thing, and methadone will actually kill you with withdrawal, where opiate won't. So it's, you know, and now they have another pill that they give people to come off instead of, and I can't remember the name right now, but there's a new non-narcotic substitute for.
What are the side effects to that though?
And they'll kill you too. Suboxone, yeah, and it's used as a. But the thing is, at least from what I see, you know what I mean, and I've been doing this. I started last October researching. I was on my first year of college over here at the COT and the university when I got into the journalism things and was finding out more. And because I was a felon and a medical marijuana patient, about half the papers I did for my first semester were all focused on what I was doing in my life. That's the simple, you know what I mean? Take what you know and run with it, right? So I focused everything around what I was already doing and just kept building on it, and I learned a lot, you know? And the government, I won't say the government, the Department of Corrections and the pharmaceutical companies and the Mexican and Canadian drug cartels all have the same goal: keep marijuana illegal. They're all making money from it. Why would they want it to be legal? Mexico took a big hit in income and funds because Montana's growing its own weed and they're not shipping it up. Canada is losing money every day that marijuana is legal in Montana because they're not shipping their marijuana down to people that are going to use it either way. You know, I was speaking with my parole officer, and she said, well, there's a lot of people that are using this, and they're just using their injuries as a reason to get high or to smoke pot. You know what I mean? They're using whatever reason they can get to get the card. And I don't disagree, but I don't disagree that they're in the wrong. They're just taking stuff that was already a problem for them and an action they were using to solve that problem that was illegal, and now they have a chance to make it legal, and they want to be legal law-abiding citizens. You know what I mean? I don't think I've ever met anybody in the criminal justice system that said, well, I mean, if it had been legal, I wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean?
Well, one of the interesting things that I found I only have 6 patients, and you know, so I'd be considered a small caregiver. I'm not even a caregiver anymore. I can't be. And underneath the provider statutes, it's in SB 423. I probably never will be again because I committed a crime when I was 20 years old. I just turned 40. Granted, I'm still under supervision, but I've made it a long time. But of the people, the law made it loose enough that anybody, you know, could go get pretty much a medical card if, you know, for a long time. I mean, they always bring up, well, you know, we only had 3,000 or 4,000 cards until, you know, Eric Holder and Obama said they were going to prosecute people. Because, unfortunately, in our society, and I don't know if you've noticed talking to constituents, you know, we love our country and everything else, but we fear our government. You know, I mean, there's been too many Wacos, and I mean, there's a whole lot of things that people are starting to see nowadays that, you know, our government perpetrates crimes against our own people every day. State sovereignty issues, whether it's medical marijuana or, you know, there's a lot of regional. I started to do some investigation when we started this just on state sovereignty issues. And it's just extreme. The federal government has took our original constitution and everything in their powers to, you know, what they're allowed to do and run with it. The alcohol age limit laws or the speed limit laws, what they use different things on funding the states or whatever, they use so much leverage to force the states to do their mandates. Whatever they want to mandate, we'll take your funding away if you don't do this. Being a small state like Montana, we have less than 1 million people, you know, we do need some of the federal funding that we get. I mean, we have a lot of roadways and stuff like that, but for them to use that as leverage to make the states bow to whatever, you know.
Right, starting with the seatbelt laws and the under 21 drinking laws.
Mm-hmm.
That was the beginning of it. Make everybody be 21 and make pot illegal. Alaska criminalized marijuana because they were told we won't give you any highway funds. Montana changed the speed limit and made the drinking age from 19 to 21 because and they made the double nickel speed limit back in the 70s. Same thing. Do this or we won't give you any money to...
The raids and everything and the pressures from the attorney generals to the legislature. I think that you guys got letters from them on voting for things. Is that correct?
We didn't get letters. We were made aware of the fact that the governor of Washington, the governor of New Mexico had received letters, and those letters were used as justification to put things into Senate Bill 423 to restrict how much regulation there would be. The essence of the letters were, if the state regulates something that the feds regard as illegal, those people doing enforcement of those regulations are subject to arrest and pretty heavy fines. So Senate Bill 423 removed all of that in one of those iterations that we talked about earlier. And we never actually received any correspondence, but it was kind of like a family secret. And going back to the point that was made earlier, Reefer Madness was a movie that was produced in the 1930s, I think 1937. Yeah. And it was like living that during the session. It didn't matter what anybody said, it was taken as truth. And no matter how much information was made available to refute it, it didn't matter. And it was very disturbing over the course of this discussion during the session, how many people gave into that, succumbed to that pressure that was all based on hearsay. So.
Well, with what has happened with Senate Bill 423, and we've had discussions, we are currently accepting new patients, and we have to do the provider change work, and we're under the full understanding that we're probably going to get raided by the feds for providing to our patients and taking care of the people, as we know. We're under full awareness of this. I mean, we stick within the law, to the levels that's there, and when we get the new cards, however long that takes, we're going to provide for the people as long as we can. And, we're going at it from the fact that, I'm still learning about different diseases like lupus. And the PTSD, I've run into the same thing. And there's a lot of the old vets that have the Agent Orange from Vietnam, and their bodies wasting away, that because they're worried about losing their benefits or their pensions if they go get a medical marijuana card, or because it's not approved that way. And I'll shoot myself in the foot and say that we make salves because there's some people that can't smoke, they don't have any lungs, and the doctors recommend the edibles, and we had Tiffany here showing people the difference because it's a lot better for you. But the salves and the creams, people with MS can get, relief from that. And even your narcotics, the opiates that they give you, it doesn't take away your pain. It just masks it.
That's right.
And it makes it bearable. Marijuana is, reproducible. I mean, we recycle everything that we can, within parameters of what, is available. It's a renewable resource. We're not outsourcing to Afghanistan or somewhere else for our opiates, because that's where they're mainly grown. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be in Afghanistan, because that's where Osama bin Laden had, I will agree with that.
But I can't agree with the fact that the soldiers there are saying that they're set out on guard duty over poppy fields to protect it from the Taliban, so that they can get money to fight the Taliban. But people can't smoke marijuana in America, and they can't drink in Afghanistan, but they can grow opium. You know what I mean? And we can protect heroin growers and prosecute marijuana users.
Well, where do you think our pharmaceutical companies get its base opium from? But I mean, and that's our interests. Turkey and Afghanistan are the largest producers. I guess China's working at it now, and Mexico's got a pretty good crop going, what I hear. But, either way, there's a correlation between the states legalizing medical marijuana in the United States and the amount of violence along the Mexican and United States borders, too. Because, like we were talking about taking the money out of it, every state that legalizes or medicalizes or semi-legalizes, however you want to say, takes markets from the cartels, which increases the violence amongst themselves and amongst everybody else. There was a thing where they are being cited congressionally, the ATF, the FBI, and somebody else, for allowing the weapons to get sold to the cartels in Mexico. That's been brought up, and I hate to say it, but our government's bigger criminals in certain aspects, and it's not the people that are elected. It has to do with what you would call the machine, the people that are not necessarily appointed to positions, but they raise up into. There's too much autonomy amongst, they were talking about the CIA, the FBI, and all them guys not sharing information, but what's in our best interest? The September 11th thing has made it harder for us to leave our country. Is being a felon in our country, that lists us as terrorists because we've committed a crime against the laws of our country. I don't think that that's proper. Our government trying to twist the arms of our legislators that are representing us is not proper. Another thing that I noticed with the SB 423 is they have a problem with trying to understand how they can give you a DUI or punish you for use of a narcotic, which Schedule 1 marijuana. Everybody I talk to, the common thing for using other drugs has been alcohol, and I've done more treatment than a lot of people. I've been actually thought about becoming a counselor. It's been recommended. But alcohol is your one prime,
Your gateway drug.
Gateway drug.
I had a lot of, two things that I always disagreed with growing up was peer pressure, because I didn't understand it, you know what I mean? Because the way they pushed it on TV wasn't the way it happened, you know what I mean? There wasn't peer pressure of, hey, come on, smoke this joint, you'll be cool, you know what I mean? There was the peer pressure of everybody else is smoking a joint, and I want to fit in, so I'll do that, you know what I mean? And I smoked my first joint when I was 9 years old. I said this on another show. When I was a little kid, I lived on an army base. My dad was military, and I'd go around shining shoes, and the GIs would get me stoned. And so it's the government's fault that I became a drug addict in the first place. I want to bring that up. So, but I should get a check for that too. There should be a check somewhere. And that progressed out to just fitting in, you know what I mean? And I was a poor kid. I mean, I was middle class to lower middle class. My dad was an NCO E6. He made a paycheck, and he had a house he was buying. I'm going to say he wasn't financially good person. I mean, he wasn't good financially or with his money, or he always wanted more than he had, so he'd buy a house or property, invest everything he had into it, then get disheartened and give up and move and buy another piece of property. So I moved a lot, but it progressed, and especially moving a lot. I'd go to a new town, and the kids that had been there, the kids that fit in, you know what I mean, that there were their little pact, didn't want outsiders, didn't like outsiders, and so it's always been the outcasts at least in junior high and high school, that were doing drugs, you know what I mean, and they weren't doing drugs and became outcasts. They were outcasts and started doing drugs because they fit in now. You know what I mean? If you smoke marijuana for whatever, medically, or I don't care if it's medically or recreationally or just to make your mom mad, if you walk into a room of the pot smokers, you fit in. You know what I mean? It's just a natural, oh, we're one of you, you're one of us, birds of a feather kind of thing. And so that was peer pressure in reality. You know what I mean? Not people pushing me to do something, but me pushing me to do something to fit in with those other people.
But I've actually noticed a trend and a change of that with it being listed as a medicine and people looking at it like that. It's not quite hip to do anymore because it's not really wrong or illegal.
Right, like the farmers were saying, they have 19, 20-year-old patients that go to parties with their friends and say, oh no, we don't drink. I use medical marijuana, but I don't drink. You know what I mean? And
yeah, I've been hearing in the stories too where there's a lot less alcohol abuse. They're using it recreationally. And I know a lot of people, like I myself, I actually used more before I got my card than I do now. I mean, I just look at it as a medicine now. I know a lot of people that are like that too. There's a lot of people that got over their fear of being on a government list and went and got their cards with, Obama and Eric Holder, and then said that they didn't. And there's a lot of people that are really scared and worried.
Right.
And nobody really, there's a lot of no clarification right now for anybody.
Yeah.
We gave our product to our patients, what we had in the store, what helped them best. On the 30th, night of the 30th. But we don't know when we're going to be able to provide that for people again. We have some strains that we kept that were the high CBDs. You don't even get high on it. It's more like turns you into a rubber band, and you still have your clarity, but the pain relief from it is great. And I know a lot of other people that I've talked to that they have the higher CBD strains and some of the stuff that's been developed for this and as a medication for people to help them. It doesn't really have the side effects of the quote high that everybody talks about. But people that have stomach cancer, we're looking at a couple other different things to help cancer patients, that because when they take
Once,
stuff.
once this all gets at least temporarily straightened out to where, the owners aren't afraid to go to federal prison for helping their patients or clients or whatever they want to call them now. How long are you figuring from the okay to move forward to crops are ready and patients can start coming back in? Because I know the Cannabis Hemp Foundation took on a lot of extra patients because some of the more scared, we'll call them, people dropped and ran as soon as as soon as there was trouble involved in making a buck, they didn't want to stand up anymore. You know what I mean? And ran.
Well, in the realization of things, a 12 by 12 cube, which plants don't, I don't know who come up with that idea, because plants don't grow like that. I mean, pretty much you can look at it as a tomato plant.
Yeah.
We're keeping everything that we can with the numbers that we have until the new cards come up. But as the cards come up, we have, I think we have 8 we just put in flower that would be ready in about a month and a half. But we're looking at, 2 months before, we're looking at probably 4.5 months to get back to where we were able to provide for our patients. And I mean, we have the people that,
So we're looking at maybe we'll have something to be thankful for this Thanksgiving. A little extra stuff in the bird.
That's realism. You're looking at, I mean, even if they try to do a sea of green and they had so many plants to, but we're looking at a minimum 6 to 8 weeks before the product's ready to be harvested.
Right.
And, we're not allowed to, well, even underneath the old law, we're not allowed to technically buy seeds. Everything's supposed to magically appear. The clones, I mean, I did the best I could to make sure that my patients had clones, and I mean, we did it for, ours, but that still takes time.
And Dave, you were, I can never stop you in time to keep my mind from going to another track because you switch so much.
Sorry. No, but we're looking at a minimum 2 months from the time that goes, and you might actually go 3 because you have to put it in a cycle because you have.
Right. So at best right now you have some clones that are getting ready in the flower that you're going to be able to put in the bud, and it's going to be a couple months. So
yeah.
And all the other caregivers are basically all under the same thing. So the entirety of Montana has basically the patients or clients, or are they still patients? They're not. They're providers and something else. Clients.
I don't even know what they changed it to. But
are going without, or they're going to the black market. You know what I mean? They're going on the street. That's your 2 choices: go without or go on the street.
Well,
and again, like you said, you were breaking the law anyway. And I want to go back to something we were talking about before, the fleecing of Montana through the DOC. And I touched on this a little bit about the DOC wanting their jobs, you know what I mean, and needing the recidivism rate, and needing to build more beds, and needing to make more prisons, even though we have one sitting up in the northeast corner empty. They still want to put in more beds and build more prisons, you know what I mean? The DOC every year, for anybody who doesn't have a felon friend, like Jason or I, you aren't this lucky, they anybody who's been to prison can tell you, and I don't think this really gets out. Twice a year, the prison gets a check, and it's split in half basically on a census of how many inmates are in the prison. So they do a census in June and a census in either December or January. I think June and December they do a census, and then they get a check in July and January. The 2 months before that happens, the prison beds fill, and once the prison beds are full,
the revocations start.
The revocations from all the different counties start. People start getting pulled in. Day rooms get bunk beds stuck in them, so that where they had a little bit of recreation time and a pool table or a ping pong table, there's now a couple of dozen more bunk beds. The old death row that was turned into a intake unit, fish row, some of you might not be familiar with, but an intake unit, and then was condemned, so they paint that and make the water run clear instead of brown for a few weeks, and fill that up, and they fill the overflow and the condemned part of the closed 2 unit, and they pack the prison with everybody they can get in it, and everybody that goes in front of the parole board gets flopped, or gets told to come back and ask again next year or 2 or 5 years down the road. And then that check comes out, and now they want to save that money. You know, now they've already got it. They don't need those people, and if they keep them, they got to feed them.
Conditional release.
So, conditional release, pre-release, treatment, start, every little program they can have, they can find fills. And they dump the prison out. And then, about 3 months later, it starts over. And they start building it back up. And it's a fleecing of the citizens of Montana. And unfortunately, like you said, you were on the short end of the voting stick, you know what I mean, and trying to fight for us. And I think, much like California has done, Montana needs to follow suit and start doing things with referendums. One of the first referendums I would like to see written and pushed forward is that any voter referendum cannot be changed without a voter referendum.
That's actually being put together right now as we speak. I know that there's people that are putting that to go on the ballot for 2012.
Because the idea that we vote for something and then someone else can say, no, you're stupid, you don't know what you want. And this happened, we're not the first time this has happened, but it's the first time a state did it to itself. California voted to legalize marijuana 12 or 15 years ago, somewhere in there, and the feds come in and said, no, we know better than you can't do that, and stopped it. And I don't know how they were able to do it then, but California slowly came through with the medical thing after that and brought it back forward, and are basically leading the race. You know what I mean? I was at one time going to have Chris, what's his name? Troublemaker. Chris, doctor guy, started the caravans, big part of the...
Oh, Jason Christ.
Jason Christ. I was going to have him on, and with all the raids and everything that happened, I wasn't available. I lost touch with him. And some people said, no, he's bad, and you shouldn't have him on here. And I've never met the man. I know that there's a lot of people that would not have medical marijuana today, would not know the issues, would not know the problems, would not know the positive and negatives if it wasn't for him. So I want to give a kudos out to him, even though you're a pain in the keister for a lot of people. You did a lot of stuff that caused trouble. You also brought issues to the forefront and did a lot of good. So,
all I can say is they thought his attitude was bad unmedicated, or when he was medicated. You got to see his behavior when he's not medicated. But there are people like that. There's people that have gone to the war zones and they've seen some real atrocious zones. I mean, we have, our economy's slumped here. We'll all admit that we got some problems, with jobs in our economy. We got all these soldiers that were, part of our National Guard and all of that, and they had jobs when they left, when they went to Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever they ended up getting deployed. They're there for us, for our country, for our people. They come back, they don't have jobs because their mills have closed down, or whatever, due to economic basis. And, within parameters, they try to find them jobs in law enforcement. I've noticed, a lot of younger ones, and I'm glad they got jobs, but they've also seen a lot of atrocious things, and they talk about the debriefing or deprogramming. The PTSD, when you see children die or you see somebody blow up, or you just go in to try to help somebody where something bad had happened, because there's a lot of our people that were there in a support.
Or when you're forced to be on the trigger side of a child dying.
Or whatever. I have to feel for them people, and they're going over for the protection of us. And they come back, and there's no jobs. They've got problems. They didn't get it. I tried to volunteer to go when I got out, and the essence is they said that I wouldn't be a good candidate because I was a little older and I've already committed violence. But we're sending our cream of our youth out there to get the shock therapy, and they're coming back. And then some of them have the PTSD problems or whatever, but they're institutionalizing them because they don't know how. There's a whole change in culture and everything else. And not everybody has the problem, but there's enough of them that are having different syndromes or whatever that it's an issue. They've said that medical marijuana for PTSD, and they were doing studies on the Vietnam vets and stuff, was one of the best things to keep them calm, because with PTSD, and I also have PTSD, the anxiety level or whatever, it makes your thinking not correct. You'll do things, you react
in psych class they call it amygdala hijack, and your amygdala is this little tiny string that's one neuron long, but it connects your brain. And when it doesn't function, the little voice in the back of your head that says, "No, dummy, don't do that," doesn't work. That's what benzos cause, Rufinol, and overdosing on Xanax, and same reaction. It causes an amygdala hijack. It shuts down that little highway back and forth between your subconscious talking to your conscious, and so your conscious isn't that bright. It doesn't have the wisdom that your subconscious does. It doesn't remember deep stuff. So your subconscious says, no, you don't want to put your hand in the fire and grab the log. But without that amygdala hijack, you say, oh, it's pretty, and you just reach in and grab it, or do whatever other stupid thing you were about to do.
Or you
Wait,
react. In a stressful situation, you react what would be appropriate for where you were, because you slip back into a zone of where you were. Your body doesn't,
Bringing back those numbers you were talking about, there's a new milestone where Montana's just about to break 1 million. There was a thing on the paper and on the TV just the
our
other day.
1 millionth person should be here. Yeah.
Any day, yeah. There could be visitors that break down, leave, come on vacation, leave on probation, come back on revocation, stay.
Yeah. It's called an inside joke, but unfortunately, it seems to be.
But that's, hey, if you go to talk to anybody in prison, and I mean that's a common joke. There's a lot of out-of-staters because they don't have the family and support in court here. And if you ain't got money, you're going to prison. So
we call it the Just Us Club.
The Just Us system. It's the rhetoric is you come on vacation, leave on probation,
come back on revocation.
Come back on revocation and stay on something else. But basically, it's they get their claws into you and won't let you go. They give out time like no place I've ever seen. They don't have any grid. It's just a good old boy club. And now, I mean, I'm time barred, I think, and definitely money barred. But a friend of mine's boss was on my jury and told me that 6 hours into deliberation, the two women said there was no evidence against me because actually I just knew the girl that got in trouble. I mean, it was my second offense. I'm not saying I was innocent or not messing around with people I shouldn't have been running around with. You know what I mean? But everything was just, I went to jail for 3 days, and she set up a drug deal and burned a batch of methamphetamines in the middle of it. So when I come out, it was all there, and that was the evidence they used. You know what I mean? And she wouldn't have been guilty if she hadn't known me. So I'm not saying that it's on her either. You know what I mean? I'll still put it back on me. But these two women said there's no evidence against him. We can't find him guilty. And they took a break, and the prosecutor went out to them 6 hours into deliberations and said he was there and he knew what's going on. That's what makes him guilty. And they went back in and convicted me on that. And 10 years ago, I could have got it dismissed for court procedurals, wrong for, but there was a Wizard of Id comic long ago that had the Mongol sitting there in front of the king, and the king says, you don't want a lawyer. Do you think you could represent yourself better than this attorney? Why don't you want an attorney? And the Mongol said, he's being paid by the same people that are trying to hang me. And that's exactly what's going on in the justice system here. Public defenders barter lives. If you let this guy have a short probation, I'll give you this guy.
Well, they also have the problem of, and because we're not a big state and we don't have a lot of money. I mean, you got to take a look at Dave and them guys. They have to appropriate money, and that's part of your job, correct? They only have so much to work with, and they have to divvy up, and they do the best that they can. I mean, and I'm playing devil's advocate here because I had a public pretender that had a caseload, and at one point I was looking at a possible death penalty. And the probation and parole officers, just like you got the people in the legislatures. We have overzealous people in all categories of life. It doesn't matter whether it's a manager at McDonald's. People sometimes will abuse the power that they gave. Not saying that everybody does. We have people of reason, like our senator here, that tries to, deviate that. but there are people, I mean, we do need these people. You know, they can only fund so much.
Right.
And being a devil's advocate, I'm gonna stick up for that. They can only fund so much, they only have so much resources they have to use.
Well, and I think nobody should walk into a court in America and not say, not guilty, jury trial. And I think that would stop a lot. Take it to trial. They cannot take everybody to trial. It will stop. The prosecution, the judges, the good old boy system, if everybody says, no, take me to trial, it will bankrupt the communities and the courts, and they will quit arresting people for stupid crap just to fill the jails. But people have to be willing to go to jail. And I understand, I was telling Dave here, and we're not letting you talk much, and that's starting to bother me. I can't shut Jason up, and I'm just as bad. I
keep trying to refer back to Dave here.
But people, what was I saying? Because I just lost track again.
Okay, what you were saying is that if people actually took everything to trial,
Right.
it would bankrupt everything. But the whole thing is...
And that's not good,
and I'm
but I think it's necessary.
I'm playing the devil's advocate here, because we both know that there are people that deserve to be there. There are people that they let loose that they know are going
Right.
to make
There's
mistakes,
people I don't
and
wanna
they're going
help.
to go back. I mean, they let them, I mean, we see them, that they get a return.
Right.
But, I mean, and there's people that don't deserve necessarily to go back or even get in the senses as they do. In the wisdom of what they tried to do, you know, I mean, we need the parole and probation officers. We need the police. You know, I mean, we do need this. We don't need anarchy and chaos. And
No, I totally agree.
We do need that, but you have to also understand that they're responsible for allotting certain amounts of money. We spend a lot of money on incarceration, and they're trying to spend more money on community-based stuff, which I think is really good, because there are a lot of people that have addictions that need the help. You know, matter of fact, if they taxed the medical marijuana for education or
treatment.
or treatment purposes, a lot of us would, you know, the people need the help. You know, I mean, you talk about addiction issues. Medical marijuana also helps the people get off opiates. It also helps the people deal with coming off of the methamphetamine. I haven't touched methamphetamine in over 13 years, but I can't say that I don't have an urge or a Jones, or you walk by where somebody's cooking and you smell it, or you can smell it off of somebody sweating. 13 years I've been clean, and all I have to do is smell it, and my body craves it. I mean,
Yeah.
the people
And I'm
that
okay
were
on the addiction, but I miss
unfortunate,
the lifestyle.
you know, you know, it needs to be available. I mean, it works
Right.
a lot better. I mean, even for people that are chronic alcoholics, you know, as an American, we're an abusive people. We do, you know, we take a lot of things for granted. They can go down and buy alcohol. You know, my father died of alcohol addiction, and I don't say that we should make it not available, but I think if we decriminalized it and taxed it and set a certain purity thing and took the money out of it, our crime rates would decrease.
Alcohol, you mean?
All of it. I mean, I
Oh, like-
personally,
like,
I don't,
Portugal
I
did.
don't want necessarily to see people, but the spread of AIDS was really bad amongst a population of people that had addiction issues, especially with needles and bloodborne diseases, even more so than sexually transmitted. And there are areas that, you know, promote trying to help these people. Have you ever seen a fat junkie?
Well, not a long term, a couple, but not, you know, I mean, not very many.
Well, what I'm saying is,
They had thyroid problems
You know,
to
I
begin
mean, we're our own worst enemies.
Right.
Whether we drink alcohol or the food we eat or whatever, but to be in a reasonable aspect, the UN has a commission basically coming out saying our drug war has toppled governments. It's, you know, created all this graft and all this other, you know, crazy things, and it's not worked. After 20 some odd years into it, it
It's
hasn't
not
worked.
working. But a whole lot of other people in politics and government and stuff have gotten rich. And speaking of, you know, politics is a dirty business, Dave. It's sad to see someone as good as you in there. But I'm glad you're there fighting for us and on our team. You were saying even though you're dropping your gubernatorial candidacy, and I think I said it right, you're still going to be in the Senate fighting for us till 2015, you said, right?
I have one more legislative session. There's a lot of work that's done between sessions, so I continue to do what I can to be in touch with people in my district and to stay abreast of issues, tax issues, this issue, eminent domain, there's hundreds and hundreds of things. And all of them require us to learn. And while we're in session, it's pretty difficult because there's so much to do. The best time to learn, frankly, is when we're not in session, to go to meetings, talk to people, and to learn. And when we're in session, then to know where you can access that information, where you can pull information in that has an application to a bill or a proposal that's in front of us. And too many times, I think people in Helena, it happened especially with medical marijuana, isolate themselves from the information that they need to make good decisions. They don't ask critical questions. They kind of get swept up in the momentum of something, and frankly, there was a hysteria almost that surrounded the deliberations on repealing medical marijuana and then significantly reducing access. And neither one of those is a good omen, not just for medical marijuana, but for all the other things that we have to do. That same behavior applies too many times. So we need to remember that we don't work for the people that are in that building. We don't work for the lobbyists.
Right.
We work for the people that elect us and send us to Helena.
And that's what we're not seeing, because I think the lobbyists are the ones that were getting represented
And the one
in
thing
our last session.
The one thing you mentioned that is sort of an interesting idea would be an initiative, which this was. Initiative is by the people. They petition, they enact a law, and there ought to be some special recognition that that's a unique act. It doesn't happen an awful lot. And changing it, I think, ought to be done by the people. Now, we'd have to amend the Constitution to do that, and evidently there's a measure that's circulating to do that.
There's one for that. There's one for funding our school systems.
Right.
In the first month of things, because my understanding in talking to you and some of the other representatives, that the medical marijuana issue took time from you guys, from real critical issues for job creation. I mean, like you mentioned, eminent domain, there's a lot of things that are there.
We spent way too much time on this, and then the end result was a product that was substandard by anybody's measure. And the most important thing that we have to remember is when we do the work of the people, we need to listen to them. And we didn't do a good job of listening. And there are thousands of people that emailed me, literally thousands of people emailed me with their story. They're not young people. There's several couples were good examples where Harlowton, good example. Couple there in their 70s. Her mother is still alive, is 99 years old. She has a medical marijuana card. The 99-year-old mother has it. So now, under this new law, they were going to be faced with having to grow medical marijuana for her, or to go on the black market. Neither one of those is very functional, and it deprives not just that example, but thousands of others just like it around the state.
Right.
That woman that's 99 years old had tried for decades to seek relief. Nothing worked. She became addicted to really, really heavy narcotics.
And it happens so much that people get addicted to
narcotics. And the doctor said, well, that's not working, let's give you this. Well, you become addicted to more than one thing. And we did a bad job, I believe, listening to the people that we serve. And we listened to, if you look at the lobbying reports, there were a lot of people that were paid for by the pharmaceutical industry, and they were very subtle in the way that they approached this.
Right.
And the public wasn't well served.
We stated
one of
that
the-
on the show a couple times.
One of
as
the
far as
things
lobbying.
that has come up was a big deal in the paper, at least. In the newspapers, I heard over and over, and they throw numbers around and they use it for scare tactics, fear tactics. We only meant for 2,000 or 3,000 people to have cards. Now 30,000 have cards. That's a huge number. And 30,000 is a huge number if you're counting pennies out and rolling them. But 30,000 out of a million is 0.03%. You know what I mean? Less than a penny on a dollar. It's 30,000 is 0.03%. The United States has 5% of the world's population in it, and we hold 25% of the world's prison population in what we call a free country. Montana has 1 million people, and 0.03% of those are using cards in a country where 25% of the people suffer from chronic pain. So just those simple statistics mean that
23%, 22% of the people that are suffering from pain aren't using medical marijuana. Some of them aren't because they grew up in an era where it was reefer madness and it was bad, and they just can't, you know, and I understand a lot of this. I feel for people in this change because it's such a dramatic shift, and it's worldwide. It's not just here. This isn't just happening here. Everybody's watching Montana to see what happens here. Everybody around the world to see what happens here, because going against changing a voter referendum was so outlandish. You know what I mean? That's the first time ever that a legislation has taken something that people voted in and said, nah, we'll just throw that out, we'll do our own thing. The small percentage of people that are using this, you got to understand that Montana has 1 million people, so there's 299 other million people in the other states around us. And we have 3% of our meager population using a relief that should be being used by 25%. The what was it? A national. There's a geo whatever. The big government, multi-government national thing had a study done on marijuana. They said the United Nations had a study done on marijuana and said that it should be. Their study concluded that marijuana should be as readily available as aspirin throughout the world, and that the United States and the rest of the world needs to shift in how it focuses or how it looks at marijuana, because it's a drain on the economy of our country, our justice system, and all the countries around us. Everybody we deal with, everybody who were dumping money into their country to kill their people so they won't grow marijuana that might come to the United States. The guerrillas and stuff we've fought in Nicaragua and the cocaine wars, you know, I mean, all this stuff coalesces.
Well, they've also brought up the fact that they're bringing up the Montana Cannabis Industry Association. You know, the fallacy that you just throw a seed in the ground and you have a medical quality product, it's not there. It actually costs a lot of time and money. And like you talk to any farmer or rancher or anybody that's even growing hay or whatever, and it's an agricultural product. Sometimes something happens and we have to destroy a whole crop because of a blight or whatever. And you know, there's a
mold, spider mites.
Yeah, there's a big issue about the caregiver to caregiver transactions, because if you know the power goes out or something happens and our whole crop's gone, we still have, you know, how many
300 people waiting for their medication.
That we have to, you know, and the people who do the edibles, like Tiff was on our show and Rose does, and she's a part of it. You know, this has created basically a homegrown agricultural based type of industry, because edibles really, and the doctors promote it, the smoking's bad for your lungs. And I mean, I still smoke cigarettes, so I'm one to talk, but
well, not everybody can take edibles and be affected by it. Like I don't, my body doesn't process it. I don't get anything from it.
I mean, they recommend, and they also have the vaporizers and everything else. But the push against using it is a smokable or whatever, and going to the creams and edibles where it's applicable, more so. And it takes a lot of product to make like some of the oils, or you know, where you extract it so that people can cook with it. And then there's also you know, ways to do things that are proper or improper, and you know, people are going to consume this. So I mean, there's certain things we have to take in consideration. What goes into grow it. There's a big push for organics, which you know, I mean, we import so much of our food, we import so much of everything else. People don't really realize what it takes to, you know, we have a lot of
what it takes to grow.
Agricultural used to be top of our, you know, and it has created a lot of jobs. It's keeping our money in this state. It's filling empty buildings that aren't there, and it's also taking care of people, that gives them the option from not using the pharmaceutical products that are, you know, more costly to their health, more costly to their pocketbook.
Okay, I'm gonna have to cut you off there. We're running out of time. I want to give you a couple more minutes if there's anything you want to tell our viewer public about your, you know, what the future holds for Dave Wanzenreid and the city of Missoula with you as our representative.
Well, I think the most important thing is for the public to pay attention to what it is that's happening with this issue and educate themselves about it. If they don't do that, they're surrendering to some very well-financed pharmaceutical companies that have an agenda.
Insurance,
They want
too.
all of us to take whatever it is that we have to have for heart problems and all the other things. And this industry is going to be a part of Montana's economy in one way or another. We can choose to make it legal, or we can choose to have it in the black market. And frankly, I would much rather have it done correctly, regulated correctly. And that's probably going to take a change at the national level. It's going to change a lot, taking it off Schedule 1 and getting it done correctly. And letting the states, we live in a much different world now than we did even 10 years ago.
So, given the couple minutes I got left, if you're gonna abandon a state,
I'm not abandoning anybody.
who as a governor, who or do you have somebody that you want to put your name behind? If we're not going to vote for you, who should we vote for? Who's close enough to you that we can say, hey, this is someone we want to stand behind?
Well, I'm good friends with the Attorney General. I think in some areas,
See, I don't like him as much.
I understand that. If you're asking me,
I'm here.
we're gonna have to just make sure that he understands this issue better than he does right now. But you know, when you're governor, you're chief executive of Montana Incorporated, a large state, $10 billion all-fund budget. So there's lots and lots of issues, and we're going to have more people surface that will be candidates.
All right. Dave, thank you again for coming on our show. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for the invitation.
Jason, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Next season, we'll have like some kind of cue where like I throw something to Jason and he quits talking. It'll be something like that.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. You know what? I couldn't have done this show without the guests. So again, I want to thank Dave. I want to thank Sierra Dornsfield that brought the art in our first or second show. I want to thank Derek from Flame Tree Glass who gave us a great show. Tiffany from Tiffany's Treats who spent endless time and effort showing us how to make products. I want to thank Montana Normal, the MRL, Montana's for Responsible Legislation. There's so many people that I know. I'm forgetting a lot of you, but I want you to know all of you that came down and helped. Mike that did our first two interviews. Kelly, who was my co-producer and got pulled away to the other side of the state for work. So many people were a part of this, and I couldn't have done it without them. I've been winging this the whole way. It's only because of the help of the people here at MCAT, Joel, Christian, Philip, all the people that have supported us, stood behind us, helped us step by step through this, that we were able to bring this to you. I give every bit of credit that I could possibly have to those around me. All I'm good at is running my mouth. So thank you all for your support and coming down and being a part of this show. Thank you to the Montana Cannabis and Hemp Foundation for your support and sponsorship, along with Tiffany's Treats and Pops Pipes and Sapphire Services down in the Bitterroot. Both of those two businesses are still going to be in operation when all this is said and done. And special thanks more than any other, once again, to Jason. You've been here for me from the beginning and helped me out every step of the way. You've been here when nobody else has, and this is my caregiver, and I got nothing but good stuff to say about him. He's not my caregiver anymore. He's my provider or something. I don't know.
We don't know yet. We're just having to step back and just use what we had before the first, because
right.
like
And hey, for anybody who doesn't know, I
I
got an email from my parole officer that said, as far as the DOC is concerned, if you have a card, it's good until it expires, and that gives us time. Thanks for being part of the Growing Green Show. If stuff stays legal, we'll have a new show for you coming out in a few months. Stay tuned. Come back. We love you. We love you, Missoula. We love you, America. Thank you, everybody.
And remember to look at the voter list of who voted for things when you go to election, and register to vote.
Register to vote. Sign the petition. Be a part of the solution instead of the problem. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Have a great day.
Are you still?
how long have you and Buster been together?
We've had Buster for 11 years, since he was a little youngster. And his
Wow.
nest tree blew down, and we got him when he could just fly. He hurt his shoulder somehow. And we've had him ever since he was, I'm thinking, a month old, 2 months old.
So how long have you and Miles been together?
Miles came to Raptors of the Rockies in 1999, 11 years. And we don't know how old he is because he came in as an adult. And he hit a power line, and he's missing 4 of these flight feathers, so he can't fly well enough to release.
Do they get along together?
No. Who do you think would win if we put Miles and Buster together?
Buster. No, Miles.
I think Miles. I think Miles would. But that's a good question, because great horned owls eat saw-whet owls.
Oh, wow.
And saw-whet owls will make this tooting sound, and it's hard to locate. They're almost like a ventriloquist. And if you hear one of those making that sound, they're hard to find, and so that makes it hard for the great horned owls to find. But they will eat saw-whet owls.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, do Buster and Miles have any friends around here?
Yes, Miles has a friend. Miles lives with Jillian. Jillian's the big great horned owl female. I think she's about 4 or 5 now. And they get along just fine, and they share programs. So we'll take
Yes.
Miles, then the next one we'll take Jillian, next one we'll take Miles, and they look and they go, whose turn is it?
And does Buster have any friends?
Buster lives next door to iPod, and